I think that the world is changing. I think that we could play a much bigger role in society with our talents as creative people. During my own career, I came up with one simple finding, is that success is nothing more or nothing less than talent that is big enough to work together. I think basically, if you give something the name of a country, of a nationality, it tends to reflect something of the culture and the mentality of that country. One of the things that I think it's at least a characteristic of Dutch design is its directness, and it's in a way sometimes it's bluntness in its story, and the lack of fear to combine things. I mean, if you look at Jurgen Bij's sofa of the tree and from the early days of Droog, all that material. I mean, that was a combination of stuff that was, in a sense, not being done, not being taken serious by the design industry. But they thought, they proclaimed it was not art, it was design. They could, in a way, reproduce it to design processes to make those kind of statements. The design research that went into that, out of that came forms of art, in a way, if you like it. Give a statement of, in a way, self-criticism. Maybe that has to do with the Calvinistic background of this country, in a way. Of the fact that we don't know how to handle luxury products, how to normally do what everything wants with the gold and the silver. And, you know, we have to make a statement about that in a way, because we're not used to that. It's kind of, I mean, I wear a golden earring, and that, which is not fashion. I mean, I come from a fishing village, and it's an economic thing. I mean, if you are thrown overboard, you've got something of value, of gold, with you, so that you could be buried on the right side of the church, not on the poor graveyard. So it's not even fashion. I mean, it's an economic kind of thing. That's how he, in a way, explained those issues. So I guess it's coming to terms with our more strict past, finding ourselves in a consumption society. It has to do something with that. Where that leads to, I don't know. And next to that, there was this kind of sense that we are not afraid to, because of the directness, to make the failures, to speak out like we do with the English. I mean, we don't speak perfectly English, but everybody speaks English. So in that sense, we are not afraid to speak out with design and make mistakes, because a lot of Dutch design was made, but there was a lot of crap within that Dutch design, which was not recognized, which was not taken out as being quality stuff, like the few examples that we all know. But it's a burden in itself as well, Dutch design, because now everybody expects the droog kind of stuff. And well, talk to Maarten Baas. I mean, I guess he finds it very difficult, because the expectations get that high, and I don't think it's very easy for a designer, and I'm not a designer, to live up to, okay, well, this is what the outside world expects of me. And sometimes, if you look at the designers, except from people like Hella Jongerius or whatever, I mean, if you really look into it, only a few made a career out of it. Some very incidental kind of things. Like in the UK and like some other countries, the creative industries were conceived based on the book by Richard Florida and connected with urban planning. That was the main driving force for the government to say, okay, well, all those kind of professions, from filmmaking to fashion to whatever, it's all creative, so we'll call it a creative industry. But it wasn't an industry. I mean, it wasn't like any other industry. There was no system of organizing within those industries. It was all professions, but there was nothing horizontally joining it or gluing it together. But once they said it was important for them, the only thing that they could do was to promote it and to, on a network level, say, okay, well, you have to connect. And that's what they did. And they gave subsidies primarily for getting together, making networks between all the different columns of professions. And they put some money, and not a lot of money compared to all the other industries, because it's all, in my point of view, it's all talk and little walk. Put some money into promoting startups, creative startups. And they made a huge mistake about it. And one of the other things was they, like any other country, connected it, as I said, to the urban planning. So what they did was all the empty warehouses, all the other stuff that you could move in there as a creative person or a creative company almost for free. I mean, the most famous example is the Amsterdam red light district. They closed down a couple of the whorehouses there and put creative people into that. A lot of publicity all over the world. Well, look at Amsterdam. I mean, okay, we had this one thing which was very intriguing to the rest of the world. Red light district, prostitution, that's out. Now we've got creativity in, which is also intriguing. Everybody happy. The fact was that if you say to people, you can start for a year to live there, it doesn't cost you anything, amount of money is very limited. I will give you some subsidies up front. You make beautiful stuff. You're in the magazines before you know it. I mean, that's the quality of the... But then the real shit happens. Because then the next year, if you're a fashion designer and you've made your mark into Elle or whatever magazine they're called, they expect you to make another show in spring and another show in fall, and then the year after that as well. But then the subsidy is already stopped because it was a starting subsidy. But then you have to buy your materials, your fabrics, your clothing. You have to get in 2 or 3 people to make the collection, all this, and then you need serious money. But then there is no bank, especially not with a crisis going on. He would welcome you and say, okay, well, you were subsidized for the first 1, 2, or 3 years. You can't show me any real figures because of it. And now we are going to loan you money. Forget it. So what happened? We really kind of pushed people into the creative industries, young people, without acknowledging the fact that if you want to make them into a success, you have to have a plan also for phase 2, the scaling up from 3 to 30 people. And if you don't have a system of entrepreneurial backing in the form of private equity or informal investors or whatever, a lot of those startup companies, whether it was gaming, whether it was fashion, whether it was design, they just all went out of business again, or they're still struggling. So that was a kind of problem that we had, and integrate that much more into the curriculum, whether students like it or not. We think it's a necessity.
Yeah. So just
of a group, for instance, if that's one of the things that you have to do, it's easy for some. It's very difficult for others. I mean, that differs from person to person, differs from nationality to nationality, from culture to culture. When we've done that the first year, it's the second year not about you, it's about the world, what you see happening in the world, what are the trends, what are the needs of people. And the third year of the curriculum of market is what do you want? What kind of designer do you want to be? You could be a designer with a cultural focus, making stuff, making unique, or wanting to have your work in galleries, make a beautiful table in a series of 3 that Brad Pitt buys for $60,000 or whatever. A lot of people do that here. They find that very interesting. But a lot of people don't see that as being a professional designer. They want to design for the needs of people. They want to make social projects. And other people, they're in for the money. They want to be working on the economic side. So that's the last year. And then the 4th year, they go on an internship. And the 5th year is the year of graduation. So for market, I only see them the first 3 years. And then I have to be very, very careful because they can change like young people can within a year. So when the graduation is there, they have different hairstyles, they have different kind of projects, and it's very hard to, oh yeah, you were that guy, you were that girl. You know, I mean, based on the talent, I can figure out who's who, but it's getting more and more difficult the moment they get to the graduation show. So they don't have any kind of sense of the value of a designer or the thing that he could bring to that. They have this sense of making beautiful things and being the artist in a way. And that is something that we have to change very rapidly. I mean, we'll stay artists anyway. I mean, it's very hard not to be an artist as a designer. You get inspired, you have these beautiful ideas, but at least you should be aware that design is not an art and is an applied form of creativity which has that value, the thing that we started with. And in terms of money, you have to be aware of that. So, for instance, in the 3rd year, we do the design dragons. We take in real investors and then say to the students, okay, you take anything that you designed over the last few years here that you want to get onto the market and come on with a calculation of a price, and then look at the production and see what you want from those investors in terms of investment. It's one of the most difficult things for them to do. And then we say, okay, well, why don't you bring up a friend who does it for you? And then if you look at the networks of the creative people, I guess I'm not exaggerating. I think that the average creative person has 80% other creative people in his network. We only talk to each other. We only go to the same conference. We only look at the same magazines, and it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. On the other hand, I mean, if you talk to somebody who did a business school, who has an idea of a startup for a product or whatever, the first thing that he does, he calls this creative friend. He said, I need a flyer, I need a website, I can't do it, I can't draw, I can't do. And he has no, if you want a creative person to set up a company, they don't say, I call up a business friend to run the company or to do the bookkeeping or whatever. No, we all want to do it by ourselves. And we want to have the control of that instead of and the best people I know in design who made it, like Marcel Wanders, for instance. I mean, he was very shrewd, he was very clever. He already with Mooi, I mean, he decided to go with a guy who was very commercially driven, and they sold half of it to B&B, I guess, in Italy, for instance. And he's now on top of the world. I mean, still has to work very hard in terms of keep staying there. But that is commercial intelligence, I guess. And there's no harm in training these nice creative people in a bit of commercial intelligence. I guess, but that's probably the most difficult thing for any person to say to any other person, because I find it as difficult as hell. Be honest to yourself. Be honest to yourself. Don't get carried away with what you think that your classmates or your tutors or your clients or society expect from you. Try to look at your own talent and see what you're good at the moment, and try to work on that. And not, for instance, that's why I said design could be a burden. Try to go along pretending that you are one of those 5-star designers when you're not. I mean, if you look at sports, success, especially in team sports, is built up of all different kind of characters. Nobody is there, or not everybody could make that winning goal. But winning goal is made by working with other people, and working with other people is getting so important in the near future. Networking is so important in the future. I guess that is something that we have to learn, and we know that from the alumni of this school. If there's one thing that they haven't learned over the last 10 to 20 years when we interview them, is working together with other people. Very much focused on their own kind of small world or ideas. And then they come into the real world, and then they find out that they're part of a chain, that they have to work together, whether it's production or finance or even the idea making itself, because technology is, or that different professions blur into one profession. So I'm not a guy who makes things into statements or laws, but during my own career, I came up with one simple finding, is that success is nothing more or nothing less than talent that is big enough to work together. I mean, I guess that's basically it. Try to be honest to your talent and learn how to work together. And for creative people, that's difficult, because we all think that we're the best. And we're very self-focused, which is obviously why we are creative. And somebody asks you, no, but be something else. And that's difficult. There's tension between those things. I have a very, very, very simple answer on that. And I guess design is helping other people. Any level. Could give them pleasure, could make them walk better, could help them travel better, whatever. It's about helping other people. That is what design is. I mean, if the thing that you came up with is not helping other people, could be creative, could be anything, but it's not design in my point of view. It's like we talked about, it's making a statement in itself, and that could help other people, but it's not intended to do. I mean, that's done by chance because somebody else likes it or not. But I think design as a profession is an applied form of creativity, and in that sense, where it's high technology, where it's a very simple kind of basic thing, it's set out to help other people.